Good evening and a warm welcome to our first edition of UBC News Tonight on this 5th day of March 2024. I'm Lauryn Masika Kazimoto and my colleague Elizabeth Nakakoni on sign language interpretation. Now, some of our top stories this evening do include President Museveni tasking heads of African judiciary on extending justice to people, Parliament adopting the report on operations and the performance of Uganda Broadcasting Corporation, and the political players and civil society agree on a possibility of separating Parliament from the executive. And we start off with our first headlining story this evening. President Museveni has received credentials from 5 ambassadors newly accredited to Uganda. The ambassadors presented their credentials today at a function at State House Entebbe. The ambassadors include Her Excellency Fatima Yesenia Fernandez, Ambassador of Venezuela to Uganda, His Excellency Mauro Massoni, Ambassador of Italy to Uganda, His Excellency Major General Paul Kisesa Simuli, Ambassador of Tanzania to Uganda, His Excellency Brigadier General Jules Ndihokubayo, Ambassador of Burundi to Uganda, and Her Excellency Nicole Adamkova, Ambassador of the Czech Republic to Uganda. During the function, President Museveni welcomed the ambassadors to Uganda and promised to work with them to strengthen cooperation between their respective countries and Uganda. Heads of African judiciary have been tasked to emulate the traditional core values of extending justice to people through seeking for the truth rather than generating legal battles. The call was made by President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni at the opening of a 2-day African Justices Summit on alternative dispute resolution in a speech delivered by his vice, Jessica Alupo. We have more.
African Chief Justices from various countries of, among others, Uganda, Botswana, Eswatini, Tanzania, Malawi and South Sudan are undergoing a 2-day summit on alternative dispute resolution at Mistil Hotel in Kampala. The summit, under the theme Re-engineering Alternative Dispute Resolution on the African Continent, aims at equipping the Chief Justices with various skills and knowledge regarding conflict management through alternative dispute resolution mechanisms.
During the summit, a number of topics will be discussed. These include building and promoting peace in Africa through alternative dispute resolution, enabling access to justice for sustainable development in Africa.
The Vice President Jessica Alupo officiated the 2-day summit on behalf of President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni.
It is my honor to officially open the Africa Chief Justice Summit on ADR.
In his speech, President Museveni applauded the Chief Justices for coming together to generate various ideas regarding ADR to extend justice to the masses. Museveni says the concept of solving disputes through mediation, arbitration among other mechanisms, existed way back in the African traditional society. Hence, the modern justice system should emulate it.
The modern system of justice has many lessons to learn and replicate from the African concept of justice. Traditional conflict resolution techniques such as the mediation, adjudication, reconciliation, and negotiation, which Africans employed in the past, offered great prospects for peaceful coexistence and harmonious relationships in the post-conflict periods. Africans viewed disputes as an opportunity for strengthening instead of breaking societies and relationships.
The former justice system is at times was not successful due to various reasons of, among others, limited manpower, mounting legal fees, thus the need to embrace ADR. Although alternative dispute resolution is implemented in commercial disputes, land disputes and others, a challenge of case backlog is still high.
In Uganda,
A Justice Needs and Satisfaction report of 2020 revealed that there were 12.8 million legal problems in a year. At the time, Uganda's population was about 40 million. And while many were resolved, majority remained unresolved, or this resolution was seen as unfair. 1.9 million were under hearing, and 2.13 million were considered to be unfairly resolved. This is quite a significant justice gap that deserves specific attention. It is the one that has kept the African societies together, has kept the fabric of our society together, which is the original dispute resolution mechanism. And it is the one we seek through ADR, through this conference, to recapture, to reclaim, so that we can have a justice system which is meaningful and formalize it so that it is not just informal as it is being practiced.
The Africa Chief Justices Summit on Alternative Dispute Resolution was engineered by Pepperdine University, the Swedish Embassy, in partnership with the Judiciary of Uganda.
We have a long-standing relationship with Uganda over 15 years in the pursuit of various forms of ADR. Most of those years, it was the initiative of plea bargaining.
The two-day African Justices Summit is hailing at Mistil Hotel in Kampala, and in attendance were retired Chief Justices of Uganda, Justices of the Supreme Court, High Court judges, among other delegates. Rebecca Nantongo, Susan Inabu, good day, UBC News.
The Prime Minister, Right Honourable Nabanja Robina, and several ministers have today met Italian investors and discussed strategies of bolstering trade and investment between the two countries. The meeting is a follow-up of the Mattei plan that came out of the Italy-Africa Summit at the end of January this year in Rome, where the Prime Minister represented the President in Italy. The meeting took place at the office of the Prime Minister in Kampala, and the Italian delegation was led by the Italian Ambassador to Uganda, His Excellency Mauro Massoni, and comprised infrastructure and energy companies.
The Prime Minister, Robina Nabanja, welcomed the investors, assuring them that Uganda has conducive investment policies and the prevailing peace. She lauded the Italian government for the swift action, as agreed during the meeting with the Italian Deputy Prime Minister while in Rome at the end of January this year.
Assisting investors to import machinery. Some tax incentives include holidays. For example, a 10-year exemption for exporters of finished consumer and capital goods.
Ministers who included Minister for Energy and Mineral Development, Dr. Ruth Nankabra, who said investors need to add value to minerals because President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni is encouraging value addition on oil products exported from the country.
That means that there are potential areas for investment, especially in the critical minerals that facilitate e-mobility.
Minister for ICT and National Guidance, Dr. Chris Wariomosi, says all interventions require digital infrastructure and investment in ICT is the way to go.
The government, we are trying to build an e-government system, and alongside that there are many things which can be done. There are areas like the telecom sector, telecommunication sector, there are many opportunities. So there are a wide range of areas where there are opportunities.
The State Minister for Finance, Amos Lugolobi, says that his ministry is ready to offer all the necessary support to any investor, especially the Italians, to spur economic development.
We want to make sure that the environment is conducive for you. We make sure that we maintain macroeconomic stability. We provide the necessary incentives for investment.
The Italian ambassador to Uganda, His Excellency Maulo Massoni, says that more Italian investors are increasingly getting interested in investing in Uganda.
I met today, as I told you, the president and to present my credential to him, and he was making a reference to this next visit of this Italian mission. So thank you to you very much for informing him and to organize the meeting with him.
Several investors expressed a willingness to invest in Uganda because of the prevailing conducive environment.
We will continue to create a link with the Italian companies to the embassy that are interested to come here.
Development in hydroelectric project in Uganda, as we are in this moment since several years, we are the first, the most qualified for complexity.
You know how much digitalization today is touching every sector of the economy, and how digitalization is a way to leverage, to improve processes, business, nations, countries, etc.
Another team of investors is expected to get into the country later this month to strategize on how they can invest in Uganda. The investors suggested holding a business forum for Italy and Uganda in Rome to meet more Italian companies interested in investing in the country.
Political players and civil society organizations have agreed on the possibility of separating Parliament from the executive in a quest for constitutional and electoral reforms. The concern of CSOs rotates around appointing members of Parliament to ministerial positions, which they say affects representative democracy. This was in Kampala during a high-level stakeholders conference on the road to 2026 elections happening in the wake of the need for constitutional reforms.
From the Vice President, the Prime Minister, First, Second and Third Deputy Prime Ministers, all the way to other ministers, most members of the Cabinet are elected members of Parliament. This, policy analysts and stakeholders say, denies Ugandans the chance of representative democracy.
The executive and the Parliament are more or less merged. Two, that there is a tendency for members of Parliament to stand with only the interest of becoming ministers. They are not really interested in legislation, they are interested in becoming ministers.
They want this trend changed through constitutional and electoral reforms.
As a member of Parliament, you are always careful. Don't overdo the criticism, if you do at all, because otherwise the eye of the big man will not see you.
We all agree that the 1995 Constitution no longer meets our desires as citizens. The 1995 Constitution was talking about an all-inclusive kind of governance.
Benchmarking on how other countries are doing it could assist Uganda in this quest. Professor Mwamusi Andewesa believes in the Kenyan system of governance.
They appoint cabinet outside Parliament so that you leave opportunity members of Parliament to be themselves. Currently, our members of Parliament, especially of the ruling party, cannot deliberate when they are themselves because they expect to be appointed ministers, and therefore they are always looking back at their shoulders. Kenya has gone a long way to do that one.
These are some of the electoral reforms that the country is currently seeking.
Examine the existing situation of all the members of Parliament, the ministers, members of Cabinet who have been appointed without constituencies. What is their performance vis-a-vis the ministers with constituencies? And who has carried out that study to show that actually a member of Parliament who is a minister performs dismally compared to a member of Parliament, to a cabinet minister who is not a member of Parliament.
This comes barely 2 years to the next general elections with a call for a leveled playing field for all political players. Henry Okrut, UBC.
State Minister for Primary Education, Dr. Joyce Moriko Kaduchu, has stepped up efforts to improve the participation of women towards quality education. This was through a marathon she organized in Lefori sub-county in Moyo district. Take a look.
Moyo is one of the districts in West Nile sub-region that performs poorly in national examinations. In 2023 primary leaving examinations, only 2 girls passed in the first grade due to several factors, although some were avoidable. State Minister for Primary Education, also Moyo District Woman Member of Parliament, Dr. Joyce Moriko Kaduchu, wants an overhaul to improve girl-child education.
This year we want to tell the public our role towards educating the girl child, educating the boy child. Women have got a role to play. We have a big role to play to ensure quality education for our children. We are here to pass the message that we want all our children to be educated.
Over the weekend, in Lefori Town Council, Dr. Moriko organized women in an annual women's marathon in the district on the theme, the role of women towards quality education.
We organize this marathon every year for women in Moyo district with a specific intention. And the intention is first of all to bring the women together for a common purpose. We are here carrying out this marathon as a sensitization activity.
And therefore, if I feel the education is embraced by women, it can easily be enforced. I pray that empowerment of women continues, because without them, education may fail.
Participants hailed the initiative that emphasizes educating the girl child.
Girls, when they educated, they help their home, their parents. They are able to get things by their own, not to get things from their parents.
Whereby if you, as being a parent, you have taken your girl to school and she is so much educated, that is the right time that as being a parent, you have been suffering to cater for this girl, and if she is married, she will be married in a proper family, and the dowry will also be paid very well because she is educated.
The marathon in Lefori Town Council attracted over 1,000 participants from 6 parishes across the district. Winners were awarded while all participants walked away with made in Uganda African print dresses, commonly known as chikoi.
In a concerted effort to combat various vices within the ruling party NRM, including corruption, which hampers the realization of the 2021-2026 Manifesto goals, Minister for the Presidency, Millie Babalanda, has launched an online Manifesto reporting tool. This tool aims to enhance transparency and provide insights into the activities of the National Resistance Movement. Additionally, she unveiled the mid-term review of the NRM Manifesto 2021-2026. These developments took place at the Office of the President in Kampala.
Minister for the Presidency, Millie Babalanda, has launched an online manifesto reporting tool, as well as the midterm manifesto review of the ruling party, NRM. Babalanda, the Minister for the Presidency, announced that the NRM has achieved a commendable 70% of its goals in the past 2.5 years, with ongoing efforts to accomplish more in the remaining period. Notably, among the accomplishments, over 20% of the commitments have been fulfilled, including the launch of the presidential initiative on skilling the youth in Uganda.
At the end of the second year of implementation,
government had achieved over 20% of the commitments. Under the presidential initiative on skilling the youths in Uganda, 12 of 19 industrial hubs in Mubende, Chenjojo, Barara, Bale, Kwe, Napak, Kayunga.
Despite the ruling party's achievement, Babalanda insists that certain vices within the party have hindered its performance significantly. However, she believes that with the launch of this online manifesto reporting tool, there will be better tracking and transparency on party activities, ultimately leading to higher performance in fulfilling manifesto commitments.
The country has generally continued to enjoy this from border to border, with the exception of the Karamoja region, where incidents of cattle rustling have been registered.
Professor Ephraim Kamuntu, the senior presidential advisor on manifesto implementation, emphasizes that while the party has achieved much, greater emphasis should be placed on, among other things, the parish development model.
The performance of manifesto, the focus must be put on how this parish development model is performing.
The online manifesto reporting tool will extract findings from the report to aid in generating the midterm report, focusing on thematic areas such as achieving economic and political integration.
We, after the findings of the task team, should be able to recommend further to government on the status based on actual facts, on how we could fast track those that could be in progress, or we prioritize those that need to be handled, and those that may be now call for a policy change that may be unattended to. What is the fate of them?
With the inauguration of this reporting tool, ministries, departments, and agencies are therefore urged to support this initiative. Justin Nakami, UBC News.
Now, Parliament has adopted a report on operations and the performance of Uganda Broadcasting Corporation. This afternoon, heated debate drew all legislators to support the findings of the Committee on ICT to enhance the budget support for the Uganda Broadcasting Corporations. The MPs highly commended the national broadcaster for its operations, urging the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development to adhere to both the presidential directive to extend an annual 30 billion support to UBC.
I watch UBC at 8. I'm always watching UBC, and I've been watching Honorable Mara also doing a fantastic job on UBC. I've seen Honorable Semujo on UBC.
Yes, you are giving them adverts, but you as members of parliament, when you are invited for programs, do you go there? Give it attention, because you need it. Historically, it is known that you could overthrow government militarily by taking parliament, UBC and the state.
The afternoon parliament session showcased a high level of strategic and innovative solutions to enhancing the Uganda Broadcasting Corporation.
Reason being, there are some programs we know you carry that are not necessarily profitable, but desirable to the nation. Therefore, I would like to stand and support the matter. Because I know what it takes. UBC is a training ground for young journalists, and you know it. It will take in as many interns as you do not know. It will train them, it will produce them to national level for even other careers to take on. Well, however, I would like UBC to adopt a plan that is used like other national broadcasters.
The MPs emphasized the role of the national broadcaster in fostering development, urging different MDAs to consider extending support to boost the financial muscle of UBC.
Because right now, one doesn't need to put up a huge building to broadcast. You can even broadcast under a small room, and then you move. So some of those things are things which we need to look at, and then we see how we can turn these assets into very, very productive assets instead of being very redundant. Because even on Minister,
The Parliamentary Committee on Information, Communications and Technology presented a report highlighting the urgency of government to prioritize funding for UBC. The report, presented by Tony Ayo, the Kwania County MP, exhibits how the funding gaps affect the long-term output of UBC.
UBC should budget for procurement of equipment to support redundancy and network monitoring system for all its sites and stations, which shall improve the quality of the network, minimize the possibility of blackouts.
That 20 years later, Uganda Broadcasting Corporation is still having the same problems. A reflection of how unserious we are as a people, that really we must be allowing others to speak for us. I would not hesitate, Mr. Speaker, to say that because Uganda Broadcasting Corporation is a national carrier, a national broadcaster, it would be wrong to compare Uganda Broadcasting Corporation with other similar entities that are private.
In order to initiate the third phase of the digital migration, the House wants government to fully settle the debt of $1 million, which is about 3.7 billion Uganda shillings, owed in order to boost coverage of the national broadcaster. It should be remembered that 17 UBC upcountry stations were switched off due to the failure to pay the satellite fees.
Government should speed up the connectivity of the DTT sites and upcountry stations through the fiber optic under the national backbone infrastructure, whose connection will be safer.
when they talked about getting decoders that are cheap, that would be an opportunity for us to also create a competition with the DSTV that when you ask what their corporate social responsibility is, you don't see anything. So let's support UBC such that we can get those cheap decoders and our people can view many channels that are associated with that.
The Minister of State for Finance, Henry Musasizi, informed the House on the interventions reached at to solve the funding gaps, including the 24.8 billion supplementary budget which was allocated to UBC.
That in this financial year we provided a supplementary to UBC under 3%, and all the money has been given to them. Yes. How did this arise?
How much was it?
It was around 24 point something billion.
The minister, your colleague, the minister is saying
Yes.
money.
The report on UBC also calls for opening of boundaries for all UBC land in order to address the allegations of encroachment.
And my interest is the chair indicated that UBC's land on Colorado Summit View is encroached on by not only the other private players, but the UPDF. And also indicate that for UBC has to seek for permission from UPDF to access their premises.
The Deputy Speaker of Parliament, Thomas Tayebwa, tasked the executive to address the recommendations of the adopted report and report back to Parliament within 3 months. Daniel Mugoya, Gloria Gutabinji, UBC News.
The Public Accounts Committee has tasked officials from the Ministry of Defence to produce an instrument or a letter from the Ministry of Agriculture appointing them to implement the Food and Feeds program, where they failed to account for 29 billion shillings they used. The officials had appeared before the Public Accounts Committee to answer queries in the Auditor General's report year ending 30th June 2023, where they were tasked to explain how they spent 1.7 million shillings to cultivate an acre of maize.
Officials from the Ministry of Defence and Veteran Affairs, led by the Permanent Secretary Edith Buturo, have appeared before the Public Accounts Committee of Parliament to answer queries in the Auditor General's report for 2022-2023. The committee directed the debate on the query of implementing the Food and Feeds Programme, where the Auditor General's report indicated that 29 billion shillings was lost. According to the chairperson, Park Mwanga Chivumbi, the ministry projected to generate 37 billion shillings, but only generated 9 billion shillings.
Because I've been telling my research team, if we don't get more money, next time you cannot even do the same planting, because now you have 9 billion. You are going to come back to Treasury to demand for more money to move.
The report indicates that production per acre of maize was projected to be 1.7 million shillings. This prompted some members of this committee to demand for a document of the feasibility study.
37 billion from the cost input of 21 billion. You must have had a methodology how you arrived at 37. And that's what I call a feasibility study.
Send somebody at office, scan the letter. They don't need even to travel to this place. Let them scan the letter. It gets to us because you...
The Permanent Secretary, Minister of Defence, Edith Buturo, told the committee that the program was initiated by the Ministry of Agriculture and it is the one that made the figures Defence used to implement the project. Defence received a letter from the Ministry of Agriculture appointing them to handle the project, which decision came from Cabinet.
Why we need this letter giving work to UPDF from MAIF, their details you have to look at, and they will determine whether this was an emergency issue or not.
Originally, the authority that we had was to go and plant in this budget. Equipment will come from the Ministry of Agriculture. That equipment never came. So this incidental cost is what raises the figure from the 1.590 to 1.770.
Was actually planted is only 8,958, and that one means that the unit cost per acre, according to what is spent, increases to 2,430,200 shillings per acre.
According to the Auditor General, this was an emergency project in response towards food security and animal security. However, some MPs questioned how the exorbitant costs were incurred, yet land was already ploughed in some districts.
Emergency is this: where you are responding to food shortage, then you are destroying all the crops already planted. Okay? Which emergency is this? And really, they created the other emergencies. People were left without food. People are not per acre. You know where the land is already tilled. People have been using it. It is even more simplified. We are farmers. We are here. It just needed just one which would be the second plowing, and that's what a grader, a dozer, clear the bush, and the cost of it, a dozer is 1 million per day. It consumes 160 liters. After bush clearing, you do what they call grabbing to pick those remains, and then you start the plowing. Plowing one, you do the grabbing, which is 150.
The program was being implemented in Kabamba, Mubende district, Kata, Bulambuli, Nakasongora, Chikube and Changwali. Meanwhile, the chairman of the committee, Mwanga Chivumbi, guided that Under Secretary, Logistics, Ministry of Defence, Gabriel Francis, be put on oath and re-examined for giving contradicting information on the 259 million shillings that was supposed to install irrigation system but was repurposed.
150 million towards the irrigation scheme was not incurred, much as the fund.
Do you know this contradiction? I want to get you on record, and if you say contrary, you would have lied under oath.
Governor Francis, do solemnly swear that the evidence I shall give touching the matter before this committee shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God. The money on the irrigation in respect to the irrigation scheme was not expended for that purpose.
You given permission to repurpose it? Do you have that evidence?
because the money was used purposely to procure what? Irrigation system. Can you tell us that you have a letter from the PSST?
I'm Navka Farida and Gloria Gwetabenji in Kampala.
Fred!
Osmosis.
Freddy! Fred Dollar, my boss, CEO Inojo, the general of generals, the conqueror of conquerors, the first and the final, the sky above the skies, the promised land, the terms and the conditions, the international king crocodile, the source of the Nile.
I don't have money today.
Just take a polite loan of 200k to stock on my shop. The signs and symptoms of success. The bank commander, not the bank teller.
Why hassle for a loan when you've got MTN Momo? We're sorting. Use the Momo app or dial *165*5# for all quick loans. Choose from the different loan options from our partners and get one that works for you. Together, we're unstoppable.
Have you packed more with Harbour jelly and Harbour foam? Yes, it. Touch your skin from skin rashes. Movit pack. It is a new improved Movit Harbour jelly. So soft and smooth. It is a Movit Harbour jelly.
Tell me, kids, the scent. Any irritations? No more rashes and irritations. Movit Harbour Jelly and Harbour Soap is rich in natural herbs for a smooth and glowing skin.
Movit all day confidence.
The government of Uganda and the Uganda Bureau of Statistics is calling upon all stakeholders such as the chief administrative officers, city mayors, resident city commissioners, city clerks, city and division councillors, wards and LC chairpersons, as well as the residents and business communities to cooperate with the UBOS field teams as we embark on advanced preparations to conduct the National Population and Housing Census on the 10th of May 2024. The census will be a 10-day exercise to obtain statistical data and information that will be used for planning and policy formulation, including information on 1. How many we are, 2. Where we are, 3. How we are living, 4. What we own, and 5. Where we access services from. The Uganda Bureau of Statistics has now started listing of households and mapping in the 11 cities of Arua, Fort Portal, Gulu, Hoima, Jinja, Lira, Mbale, Masaka, Mbarara, Soroti, and in the Greater Kampala comprising of Kampala, Wakiso, and Mukono districts. For more information, please call 0755 342 128 or 0773 342 128. This message is brought to you by the Executive Director and Census Commissioner, Uganda Bureau of Statistics. Census 2024. It matters to be counted.
Welcome back from that break, and with more news this evening, the Minister of Health, Dr. Jane Ruth Acheng, says Uganda doesn't have any law that governs blood collection and distribution, but steps are being taken to formulate and also benchmark from other countries that have well-established blood laws. This was during the opening ceremony of the 11th African Society for Blood Transfusion International Congress at Munyonyo.
Blood transfusion therapy is life-saving for patients with severe anemia and acute hemorrhage, but blood supply remains oblique due to the principles governing its collection. Ministry of Health and partners organized the 11th Africa Society for Blood Transfusion International Congress to deliberate on the role played by blood transfusion services in Uganda's healthcare system. To achieve adequate and safety of blood transfusion requires capital and infrastructure investment, funding, a regulatory and policy framework.
Blood is a delicate issue. It requires a lot of attention. Personally, I would also like more information on how blood is handled legally in other countries. We don't have any law that governs blood collection and distribution, except under the National Drug Authority. In Africa, many times we assume that blood is free. So when you get a unit of blood, somebody has paid for it. And in our case, government has been paying for every unit of blood that is given to patients. The director always says she needs $81 for every unit of blood that is prepared.
Minister for Health Jane Ruth Echeng told the meeting that the regional blood banks have grown from 1 to now 8, and out of the 18 regions, 10 are still lacking.
There is a lot of blood collection. I think we are able to make about 320,000 units annually, just short of the 1% where we should be making about 450,000 units of blood collected annually. That means we are not yet there, but we shall get there eventually. A lot of blood is used in this country, but also a lot of blood is wasted in various ways. We have situations that demand lots of blood. I think for the last 3 years, we have had a lot of strain on the blood transfusion services because of the malaria epidemic, especially in eastern Uganda.
In this country, our most active blood donors are students in schools. And therefore, the shortages during the long holidays are as predictable as the rains of October. In this country, October, you are sure it will rain. In the same way, during the long holidays, we are sure we are going to have crises regarding blood donations.
Health experts say blood safety is a global priority, and in 2017, blood and blood products were included in the 20th World Health Organization model list for essential medicines.
Nucleic acid testing, and I think we are the only country, second maybe to South Africa and Namibia, that are doing that testing to make sure that blood is as safe as possible to be given to a patient. So our blood is really safe. The window period is always narrowed down, and so we can assure you that blood safety is well achieved in UPTS.
Also now I see something good that Uganda is trying to make the best use of the plasma that's collected, how to make benefit of this plasma and not just to waste it without being used for fractionation and providing plasma products for patients.
The Africa Society for Blood Transfusion Congress is on the theme adopting global innovations and technological advancements in blood transfusions. Zahara Abigaba, UBC News.
The Archbishop of the Church of Uganda, Right Reverend Stephen Samuel Kazimba Mugalu, has reminded government that time is now when they need to hand back the contested land belonging to Ndeba Church, which was demolished nearly 5 years ago. Kazimba has made this plea to government during a 3-day retreat of bishops who are convening in Lueza, Entebbe, where the Minister of Lands, Housing and Urban Development, Judith Nabakoba, was in attendance.
The Minister of Lands, Housing and Urban Development, Judith Nawakoba, has attended the 3-day retreat of Church of Uganda bishops convening in Lweza, Entebbe.
Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord.
The retreat happening at Lweza Training Conference Center is attracting bishops from 39 dioceses across the country.
Holy Spirit, rest upon our guests, rest upon our minister and her ministry.
The second day of the retreat has attracted a world discussion about land-related matters, mainly attached to the church.
My officers at the diocese have been trying to follow up on files in the Ministry of Land without success for a long time. But when I came personally to the office, when you are on leave,
we pay a lot of money to keep the church ministers secure, like Nakanyonyi and Chisowera, so that the land grabbers do not come and harm them.
So we are not talking about any other things, just to learn how to work with others, how to sort out our issues, how to have the tenants or those squatters.
For the Archbishop Church of Uganda, Right Reverend Stephen Samuel Kazimba Mugalu reminded government about the presidential pledge of solving the Ndeba demolished church.
By the pledge of the president to ensure that the so-called claimer is compensated and they work out all the logistics so that we have our church rebuilt as per the pledge.
In response, the Lands Minister Judith Nawakoba pledged a total commitment to work with the church.
Archbishop, I would request that you give me a team on your side, and I'll also put a technical team to help work with your people to see how they can have their land registered, because it is doable.
She, however, set a reminder to the church leaders on the dangers of leaving their land redundant.
It's used for production. Because if it's not used, still there are people watching and they are on the lookout for idle land. You never know what may happen. But where you can, agriculture is the key.
Nawakoba also advised clerics to consider registering all tenants occupying their land, as well as looking at the land fund as an option of bailing out them where need arises.
Also having a mentality of land fragmentation and selling off. Because essentially I would think if land is available, even if it's big, let it be used the way it is. People can come and invest depending on what you have agreed upon.
She also pledged to closely work with the church to foster development. The retreat closes on Wednesday, 6th March 2024. Robert Nyango, UBC News.
In a bid to restore the lost ecosystems on the shores of River Rizi, the Ministry of Water and Environment has moved to enforce demarcation of the 100 million buffer zone by planting trees along the riverbanks. Joined by the Workers for Environment, the Ministry of Southwestern Regional Office situated in Mbara City spearheaded the planting exercise with a call to surrounding communities to help in the monitoring and growing of the trees for the best results. This is being facilitated with full support of area local leaders and landowners along the riverbanks in Mbara district.
Tuesday, 5th March marks the beginning of a 5-day water week for the Ministry of Water and Environment, Southwestern Region Office. Part of the activities of this year's Water Week include restoration of the lost ecosystems along River Rizi through planting of a series of tree species, mainly bamboo shoots, along her banks.
Kati twagala mutuyambe kubayambe omutiita tugira muddala mangu ne tulaba nga tukwatagana wamu nammwe ate twagala tukole bino nga bisigala nga bibayamba.
Hopa Simwe, a senior forestry officer of Ministry of Water and Environment attached to the Southwestern Region Office, explains on the choice of tree species.
Our recommended tree species tukuteekateka ngu neyamba kandi nekubayamba twareta bambu nebagyeta omugano ningira mwena nugumanya.
To achieve this, there is need for deliberate efforts and support of communities, especially those whose land stretches up to the river shores.
Njangwa bataka tugwakire nkasereji kandi ekiriyo nkikorwa ahabwo kurinda ebyobuhangwa.
Robert Mugabe Kachebezi, the Mbarara City Mayor, is of the view that this is ideal to build consensus with communities to at least have a 30-meter buffer zone instead of pursuing to achieve the mandatory 100-meter buffer zones. Mugabe believes that this approach is not only friendly and inclusive but also cost-effective.
Tomorrow and grow big. That's my view. We can start with 30 meters, then we know we are supposed to achieve 100 meters, then after achieving 30, we can go to 50. We can go to 60 as time goes on. But you better achieve something other than hoping to achieve more, which you cannot achieve, and it becomes a dream.
It should be noted that River Rizi, apart from being Uganda's second longest river, is a major source of water for Mbarara City, Mbarara District, and the surrounding districts.
Ngalo ichukula changu nnyo nyigabunyizi star M65 star 8 ugoberere ebikulagiridwa oba okozese app ya MTN Momo ate kati okula ky'olwaleero. MTN Mobile Money Uganda Limited erunganisibwa banka enkulu ya Uganda.
Special announcement. The Secretary General of the National Resistance Movement, NRM, informs party members and the entire public that the membership registration exercise will run from Wednesday 13th to Sunday the 17th of March 2024. You are therefore requested to go to your branches of villages to participate in the display, update, and the area.
Vaccination is free and available at all government health facilities and outreach posts in this region. The vaccination campaign will take up to 24.
Glad that you're still with us tonight. Now, in the world of business, Uganda Electricity Generation Company Limited has launched the safety 54-station campaign at Isimba Hydro. The campaign enhances safety of the on power plants while it accompanies health and safety policy.
Safety for Station campaign by UEGCL. See staff members and guests.
So